Hello. Wow, it's really nice to be back. I was honored to be. I spoke at the very first FITC back in 2002 or something, and I know it was snowing really heavily. It was like 15 feet snow drifts or whatever. And as someone who once did a lecture tour in Alaska and hates snow, wasn't good. But the actual event was amazing, so it's really lovely to be back here after all that time. And I've, oh, by the way, I've got my special, this looks like a bomb. This is my remote control that I'll be using this evening that I made, because I haven't got any friends. And I only just got this through airport security. The security guy took it out my bag and said, "This looks very dodgy," was his words. And then he let it through, not before, though, showing all his colleagues and laughing. So, not sure if this is going to get back to the UK. Who knows? Might have to check it. But it can do cool things as well as like, if you're going to make your own remote, you want it to, like, do other things than, like, just forwarding the slides. So, is the audio always up? That's good. So, if things get boring, I can press, like, we've got this white button here, which is like a panic button for me. So if you lot are falling into a coma, I can press this button and do things like this.
Can you make it a little bit more exciting? Bring one leg up, take it on over to the side.
Yeah, right. So, and who knew? She said, actually, if you want to make it more exciting, lift your right leg. That's more exciting, apparently. I don't know, but So if things get boring, I'm just going to do that. And we've got other dance moves throughout the presentation, so we'll see. If it all goes well, you might not see her again. If it goes crap, you might see her a lot. So I come from the UK, and this is what we're going to talk about, by the way, all that stuff. I also wrote my own presentation software. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. Enjoy. I flew in from the UK. I don't live in London. Not everyone in England lives in London. Hate to tell you that. Me and the Queen are obviously pen pals. And so I live in this little place called Southport. It's on the northwest coast of England. It's about 30 miles from Liverpool. No, I don't know the fucking Beatles. Anyway, sorry, there's not going to be too much swearing in this. And this is a postcard, a genuine postcard from the 1970s, because I live in a Victorian seaside town. And so, it's like a holiday place. And this is from the 70s. And I swear this is true, but that arrow is pointing to my dad. My dad was sat in this cafe. I mean, he never went to this. He went to this place once, and he was on a postcard. So I love that, and that is genuinely him in a very fetching green corduroy jacket, which was all the rage back then. And my dad's, I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about my heroes and influences and stuff like that. And my dad is one of my heroes. Here he is. You can tell the job he did. He was, of course, a plumber. No, he was a photographer all his life, back when it was film and stuff like that, and he's been a big influence on my life, and he taught me about capturing moments, not thinking too much, because he was a sports photographer all his life and did 4 World Cups and 4 Olympic Games and all this kind of stuff. So, parents are kind of big influence on all of us, I guess. Equally, my mum, how many mums or dads of people in this room, how many of them know what you do for a living? Probably not many, right? It's like, oh yeah, I think he or she is good with computers. And then they give you a call when they can't do something. We've all been there, right? So my mum, and she's been to exhibitions I've had and stuff, and she thinks it's all lovely, but doesn't really understand it. So I said, right, look, Mum, not a problem. I'm kind of a visual person, so I'll do your diagram. So here you go. This is like, Mum, this is the, it's getting very deep. This is the form of the things I make. And, it's kind of, Mum, it's kind of art and technology and design. And where those three things coalesce in the middle, that's what I make. And she looked at me and said, I told my hairdresser you invented Google Maps. I was like, no. Do you think I would be living in a 3-bedroom semi-detached house if I would have done that? But no, Mum, I didn't. So she's still confused, but she loves all the work, so that's nice. I'd like to do these little diagrams, actually. So I want to show you my process. Now, obviously, it's incredibly complicated. I'm such a deep person, but it looks like this. This is as complicated as I get as a person, right? So you get the brief from the client, and it's like, and you get off and you tell them that you can do it. Of course you do. You just say yes to everything. That's how I work, and then you figure it out later. So at the beginning, it's like, oh my God, it's like, just chaos and weirdness and no clue what the hell you are doing. And then you're trying to get to this singularity, this beautiful moment where you get everything down and all the mess and the chaos and make it into this simple, beautiful point. And that is the goal, right? I guess it's kind of like you're trying to get to perfection. But the reality is this kind of thing, really, where I have the thing in my head, right? And then the thing I actually bloody make is never the same as the thing in my head. And probably like everyone here, right? So, and there's this gap in the middle. And for me, that's what I'm trying to do every single day, is reduce that gap. So the thing on the right looks more like the thing on the left. And and I'm going to show you how I kind of try and reduce that gap. The things I kind of try and learn, or the techniques I use. But I think that's all I'm doing every single day, is try and reduce that gap to learn new things, and so I can eventually make, this kind of circle that isn't a circle thing. So a lot of it, other part of my process is this. I like to collect things. I once did a lecture basically about paper clips. No, I did. They're very, very interesting. And I'm not going to bore you with paper clips today, but so I like to collect stuff, and I like to collect, inspiration, and as you'll see, bits of code. And collecting's great, but better than collection is also curation. You've got to curate this stuff. I mean, a collection without curation is just a pile of crap. So you collect, you curate, and then the really powerful bit is, and really the theme of this talk, I guess, is the idea of combining these often mundane and very small things, ordinary things, into things that hopefully will become extraordinary, and that's where the power of these things lie. And this really came about, I've always been like this. I've always collected things and interested in combining things. Really, because I used to make breakbeat albums before I was a designer. I made these for an underground record label in London, and I was one of the unknown DJs, apparently. They made no money from this, but I used to scour record shops and find like break beats and then chop them up literally with tape, and then splicing tape and splice them together. So it was before digital, and then we'd make these vinyl records and do like different volumes of these things. So I love that process. My heroes are kind of Cold Cut and Steinsky and people like this who would use different samples to make records from. And I think that's all I actually do now, except I do it kind of digitally, and thankfully people pay me to do it. And now I have I like to think of it as a digital cupboard almost of stuff. And there's things by themselves that are actually quite mundane and boring, but when you actually put them together, that's where the power comes in. So I've got lots of stuff I don't know, wrapping lines around spheres, weird boxes that archive tweets, sine waves are really cool. Obviously, we know that. Lights that flash and making presentation software, servos, patterns, as you'll see. I'm really into patterns. So I do lots and lots of this stuff. I make an egg pop up, thank you. A 3D Mona Lisa, Da Vinci, take that. So that, and this kind of stuff. And I do lots of this stuff all the time. Just very simple things that by themselves don't mean anything, but I put them in my digital cupboard, and maybe I could call on one of these when a client needs it. And, so I think that's a really important part of the process. Let me give you an example. I'm going to show you now how to make a robot for $5. Are you excited? Is she excited? Let's have a look. So, let's take, this is a coin cell battery, which you can get for like $2. By itself. Really boring. Let's just look at this for 10 minutes. And then this is a tiny vibration motor that you find in, everyone's got one right now. They're in your phone. So you've got a battery, a vibration motor, but the beautiful thing happens when you combine these things like this. Like that one. That one's like high-end art to me. So this isn't me making this stuff. This is Arup, the engineering company. So if you've not heard of Arup, they're a huge company. They built the Bird's Nest Stadium in China. They built the Sydney Harbour, the Sydney Opera House. They also made these. So they would employ me to just come in and do some consultancy for them. And, even a company like that who seems like they're doing all this incredible, amazing work and really mission-critical, things made out of concrete and steel, they still want to play with things because by the nature of play, it then gives them a different perspective on things, and maybe ideas will come out of this. And that's why some of these are beautifully engineered, because these guys are real engineers, right? So, and it was just it was just like an hour. But I would tell you and encourage you to get some batteries, get some vibration motors, buy a load of vibration motors from Alibaba.com, dirt cheap. And just do a quick workshop at your place of work, or even just in your home or whatever, and make these things. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun with kids and stuff, and who love it. So really, that's at the core really of my message, is combining these things. But it's also, I like to combine lots and lots of things into a collection. This is a Czech artist called Bella Rosa, and she takes kind of mundane stuff. So these are, well, you can see they're just color swatches, right? Color swatches by themselves are really quite so what. But then you apply some design thinking, some graphic design, some ideas about layout and composition, and then you get, this kind of beautiful thing. I love this one. This is just button fasteners. You walk past these things every day in a supermarket, right? But then you apply some logic and sort of an artistic integrity to it, and you get these beautiful compositions. And that, for me, is kind of inspiring. They're just button fasteners. And I particularly love this one. This is just things from a shed. And they're just nails and set squares. And is that not beautiful? No, Bran, it's awful.
1, 2, double it. 1, 2, double it.
Double it. Right, so, yeah. I like patterns. Yeah, and who uses Git? Developers in the room, or you don't have to be a developer to use Git. I use it all the time, so I can't really see many people. But yeah, some hands going up. Hopefully, yeah, cool. So, I did this little. It's kind of a rainy afternoon one time, and I thought I've got all these projects that I've done using Git, and it's kind of you can actually export all that data and how you use that data very, very easily. And so I took that and made a data visualization from it. So this is, let me just turn the sidebar off. This is like the flow of a project. So you can see that I'm working on it, and then there's a few days where I'm having a think, and then, oh, hello, join the Hilton, no thanks. Yeah, and then I'm having to think about it, and then a break, and then I do more stuff, and so it really shows the ebb and flow of a project. So I'm kind of into these patterns, and you can see some are more intense than others. And that one's like, what was I doing? I don't know. Maybe I'm just really great on one day. So I like these kind of things that show the ebb and flow of stuff and the patterns that are produced from often mundane data. So many years ago, I started to play around with the idea of data from movies. So if you think about frames in a film, you could look at it that is actually data. It's data of 24 frames a second. You could say that's a piece of data. So I did things like this, slit scan things, really, in computer graphics terms, these are really, it's been done to death, this kind of stuff, but it's still interesting to explore. So this is Don't Look Now, and this is Donald Sutherland when he's just discovered that his daughter's, at the beginning of the film, his daughter's drowned in a pond, and you can see the kind of anguish on his face. So what you're seeing there is each vertical column is only 1 pixel wide, but it's the whole frame, and it does that for like so many frames, and you get this kind of slit scan effect. So, I was playing around with this stuff. And the beauty of all my stuff is kind of programmed and coded. The beauty of it is you can just change some variables and get different effects. So I'm playing around with this, at the time it was data from a DVD, or live sort of thing. So you do all that. And then you can change some variables, and you can do stuff like this. So this is The Man Who Wasn't There, from the Coen brothers, which is a great film. And instead of showing a frame, the frame's height was governed by how much sound was in that frame at that time. So you can see that it's a very sort of silent movie. There's not a lot of talking or music or anything in there. So you get this ebb and flow of the movie governed by the sound and the visuals working together. So I was like, yeah, that's all right, whatever. I'm just playing around, just playing with code. And think, yeah, not bad, put it in the cupboard, so to speak. And then eventually you hit on something. This is the whole point of iterative design. It's just you keep plugging away, and eventually something might leap out at you that you had no idea was there. So this is from 2004, possibly a bit earlier, actually. And what you're looking at is Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, and each row represents 1 minute of film time, 60 images per row, and it's the entire film. And I did that and put it on the internet and did a few films, and then people picked up on it, and it was in a few blogs. I think the Guardian newspaper picked up on it. And I can we've got a few close-ups. This is Jaws, actually. This is Vertigo. It's kind of a simple idea, right? But I called it something as well. So when you make your personal projects, give them a name. It's really, really important. I can't stress that enough. You can't discuss anything if it doesn't have a name. So I called it Cinema Redux. I don't know why I did, but that's what it was called. And when you give something a name, it becomes a thing. And so it went out, 2004, it goes on the internet. And then I get a call, an email. Now, before I tell you this, I'm an uneducated moron, right? So I left school at 16. I have 0 qualifications, didn't go to college, university, did art at high school, got a grade E. I get this email, and it was from the Museum of Modern Art in New York in 2007, and they said, we really like your cinema redux work, and we're doing this exhibition called Designing the Elastic Mind. We'd love to have it as part of the exhibition. And I basically pooed my pants. I have to say, and I remember just looking at this email, for 10 minutes longer. I was kind of shaking, and I thought, like I said, I've got no art qualifications. I've got a grade E in art, and I wanted to ring up my old art teacher and go, well, I wouldn't do that. I didn't have the phone number. But, I think originally it was going to be like an A2 size print, right? And then a few months before it was all going to go up, they said, oh, actually, we're going to do it 18 feet high. I was like, cool. And they did it 18 feet high, and there was other exhibits in front of it as well. And now I should tell you, really, that I just worked so hard on this project, and it was a real, it was torturous creating this work, and it represents me as a person and all this kind. And I've got to tell you, it took about half an hour on a Saturday. But what I did, I put it out there. Create something to criticize and put it out there. Put work out there that you think deserves to exist in the world. And so I did that, and then you see what reaction that gets. This work is still being exhibited now, like 12 years on or whatever. And if you're sad like me, so it was then inducted into the permanent collection at MoMA, and they then can use it as wherever they want. So it was in another exhibition there called Action Design Over Time. If you're sad like me, you can hide behind a pillar and take pictures of people taking pictures of your work. Right? That's a nice thing to do, right? And then it was in, most recently it was in this big exhibition called Big Bang Data, which started in Barcelona. It's been in Santiago, Argentina, Madrid, and it moved to London. It's just finished in London after massive success. So they had 4 of them there, and they lit it up in an amazing way. And now it's moving to Singapore in May. And I'm not exaggerating. It was half an hour's work, right? And I don't earn money from this effectively, really, but it's out there and people see it, and that brings other work. So I just encourage you to, and I didn't think, at the time, I just thought it was a thing, and it was like, I just put it out. I didn't really see the significance of it, and I let other people do that. Other people read into it, which is really, really nice. But oftentimes you think, is this okay? I don't know. Put it out there and see what reaction it gets. And it's still giving me value all these years on. And I think it's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, I guess. I like circles. That's it. No. Enjoy, people. You're thinking, why have we stayed for this? Let me show you an amazing, one of the greatest title sequences ever is this. Now, I love this because it to me, as someone who loves graphic design and tries to practice graphic design, and this is Maurice Binder, who did all these amazing title sequences for James Bond and others. I love the simplicity of it, but what it communicates, it's about technology at the time and data and all this kind of stuff, just with circles, right? And I've realized that most of my work is just circles and lines, pretty much. But I love this, and I thought, God, this is what I want to do. I want to do this kind of stuff. And, maybe data is sexy. maybe data is like this beautiful thing. And then you go, oh, no, it's not. So this is a CSV file. Fabulous. Best slide you've seen in 2 days. So CSV file. And what you're looking at there is the number of kills by James Bond in James Bond movies. And I thought this was like kind of interesting data. I'm interested in pop culture. So, and this was provided by the Guardian data blog, which isn't there anymore. They don't really do this anymore, which is a bit of a shame. So I got that data, and I thought, well, Maurice Binder, Dr. No, let me do a kind of infographic. So I did this. This is all the James Bond movies, and the greenish turquoise circles represent 1 kill. The red represent 10 kills. And this is what I like about data visualization. It then reveals stories that are hidden in there. No one is ever going to find this next story in the CSV file unless you're a geek. And I'm a geek, but, I've got better things to do. So you can see that Goldfinger and Thunderball, he killed 20 people. Tomorrow Never Dies, he killed 30. Man with a Golden Gun, apparently, he only kills 1 person by his hand, right? So you go, wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that. And this went crazy on the internet for a day, which is a long time in the internet, right? So, and people like discussing it, and God, he only killed 1 with Man with the Golden Gun. I didn't know that. And they go, yeah, apparently that's what the data says. And then you go, and he killed 47 in GoldenEye. It's like, was he having a bad day? It's like, what went on? It's like, so, and I think there's a scene with a tank or something in GoldenEye, and maybe that's why he was, he wasn't just pissed off. He was just like, that's what happens when you drive a tank, right? But that was the data that was hidden in this thing. No one's going to talk about that ever, right? And that's what graphic design does. Symbolize and summarize, as Sol Bass said. You simplify these things to try and tell a story. And I love all that. So I take that idea and then I use it commercially. So I've shown you some like personal stuff. I'll show you, how do I exist? How do I earn money? And thankfully I do this for clients and stuff. So EE are a mobile telecoms company in the UK and I think Europe. And they approached me a few years ago and said, we're launching 4G services across the UK, and we want you to create some art where across 11 cities where we're launching 4G, we'll gift this piece of art and we'll do a civic reception in the town hall of each city, and we'll drink cups of tea, which we did, and you'll create this art from data. I was like, wow, this is so cool. I work with University College London, who are these amazing brain boffins. And I went away and started to think, well, what am I going to do? So I went into the cupboard, the digital cupboard, and I remembered I did this thing in Flash. Let's just have a minute's silence. I did this thing in Flash, and I'd love to do this kind of stuff, little interfaces. So this is a Vogel spiral, an algorithm that is similar to the head of a sunflower, and it's quite a nice thing to use. So I had this in the digital cupboard, and I thought maybe I could use that. So I started to iterate and look at like how these things, the composition of it, lots of dots and stuff like that. And so the idea was I built this system ready for when they gave me a CSV file with like 1,000 tweets in it. And so I was playing with that, and I had a system ready to go, and then they were going to collect the data over 3 days across 11 cities, and they would give me this, and then a few days later I would give them these images made from the real data. And they said, are you ready to go? I said, yeah, well, I'm rocking, I'm ready. Let's do this. And they sent me the data on the Monday, and it was just a text file, the London one, and the progress bar, the download, were like hardly moved. Like it was like took a few hours, and I thought this isn't good. So I put it into my software, being quite cocky. I thought, yeah, let's just fire it up and then press a button and pay me the money. And I put it in, and the computer just went, I really don't think so. And it just crashed and died. And I was working it was through M&C Saatchi, the PR company, and they're ringing me up going, how's it looking? And I'm going, I'm crying right now. It's, it's moving me. I'm crying for the wrong reason, right? So, and they needed, they had all the media books and everything, and I couldn't just go, well, it doesn't work. Because the London one alone had 6 million rows of data, right? So, and I was playing with 1,000. So I thought, God, what am I going to do? So you go back to this simple thing of like, well, what if I read in one row at a time? So that's what I did. I read in one row of CSV file. It did the graphic, and this is what it made. So this is London, 3 days of data. Time explodes from the center outwards, and there's basically colors mapped to certain keywords that we then plucked out. And it's the head of a sunflower. There's possible 4,320 points, which, as we all know, is the number of minutes in 3 days. So if I zoom in, you can see that there's this white. On the second day, there's all this white. And you think, what is that? Well, that is, we pulled out tweets about Hurricane Sandy, which hit the eastern seaboard of the United States. And even though this is London, everyone's talking about it. So you can see that in the middle, the first day, lots of people talking about lots of stuff. And then the second day, people coalesce around a sort of big world event, such as a hurricane. And then you see people go to sleep. So you can see this rim of blackness. And then the next day, no one gives a shit. Like, what were we talking about? Yeah. Here's a picture of my cat on a skateboard. Cool. And it shows the kind of transient nature of Twitter. The red bit is that's Obama, and that is the exact moment when Obama visited New York during after the hurricane. So it's a kind of a visual fingerprint of a moment in time. Some of the keywords we chose. I think there's a Bond thing in there, like a Bond theme. So, and some close-ups. All these colors mean different things. It's not an information graphic at all. It's meant to be like art, I guess. And that's what they were interested in. And it kind of went nuts. It was on loads of blogs. It was even on TV. It was in local newspapers. I had mayoral receptions. Because these things were giant prints. They weren't for on-screen. And it just made pretty patterns. And I kind of like the idea the computer is part of the author with you. You create a system, you create a series of constraints, but you don't really know what's going to happen until you put this stuff in there. And so this is London, Southampton, Manchester. Manchester's cool because Man United, the soccer team, were playing. I'm bilingual, me. So Man United were playing on the third day, on that evening, and they scored 4 goals. And you can see the red explosions of when they scored the goals, just from tweets. So that was quite nice. Justin Bieber. Let's talk about Justin. So I took that same idea. I've done quite a lot with Twitter data. And this is one I did for Intel. But I wanted to do like an animation, a structure that represented time and sort of obsessed with time a little bit. So this is one I did for Intel on a screen. And this, every minute, it created these structures. So as tweets came in, and this was all about Fallout 4 and indie dev, all these hashtags, all in real time. And it would create this kind of image. So they had this on a big screen. And then after a minute, it would like save out an image. So you'll see that it all starts to coalesce, and it creates this structure that represents time going upwards. And it's very, it's circles again. I can't get away from circles. But these layers all represent the different themes. So you start to see which is more popular than others just very quickly by this visual metaphor, I guess. So you get that, and then it saves it out and date stamps it. And what I like, again, is, collections of things. So it's when you actually see a collection, then you start to see a story unfold, or it becomes more interesting, at least to me. And then I realize I'm kind of channeling Vasily Kandinsky by, I realize that it looks, I'm not saying I'm as good as Kandinsky, by the way, but it's kind of maybe subconsciously that's what I was doing. Now, the things with being inspired by something, I think it's interesting to me that you see something, and rather than, to me, stealing is where you're just like copying it verbatim. But I think what happens with inspiration is you see something, and then over time, the memory of it becomes fuzzy, and it starts to attract other things to it. And I like that process, and I think maybe that's what's happened here. And yeah, just lots of iterations of it. But how do you load balance a thing like this? I was doing this stuff, and it was real-time tweets, and there wasn't like tons of tweets coming in about indie dev at the time or anything like that. Luckily, it's the first time anyone's ever said the word luckily with Justin Bieber in the same sentence. But luckily, Justin Bieber released his album on one of the days I was developing this stuff. So Justin Bieber's great for load balancing. So this is like the real-time tweets of people talking about Justin's album. And you can see it's just going nuts. So I would encourage anyone, if they want to really load test anything, get the Justin Bieber factor, I think. How long have I got? Probably not long. I do Internet of Things type things, and I've sort of been playing around with this stuff for a long time before, I guess it was called Internet of Things. So with this project, I want to make the point of, you can go to a client with an idea. You don't have to wait for a brief. So I went to MailChimp and said, look, you're all about user experience, right? And I make some electronic objects and stuff. And why don't I make a series of electronic objects about email in a physical form? And within 2 emails, we'd done a deal. They thought it was a cool idea. They're a really lovely company to work for. So I started to make and I called it 6 Monkeys. Again, I gave it a name. I know that chimpanzees aren't monkeys. Don't get upset. But it was, I thought it worked as a name. So again, you give it a name so when we're discussing it with a client, they know what you're talking about. So I would make little prototypes like this. This is Electric Imp, which is really wonderful for connecting to the internet and Internet of Things and creating these connected objects. That's like a complete thing, and it's tiny. And I gave each one a name, named after chimps that had been used in linguistic experiments. And again, the client really liked that. We were wrapping a concept around it. So here's what I did. So I did 6 objects. I'm just going to show you a couple of them. This one is the idea of being able to email an object. Just email as an interface. So I gave this to my friend who isn't a programmer, but he can use email, so he could send it commands and stuff. So anyway, I do these little weird videos. I can say blink, and it says yellow. You've got to know the syntax of the language of it. So you think, so what? Why? Well, the point is that my brother-in-law, who I gave this to for testing, he goes windsurfing and stuff like that. So he could set, how many people use IFTT to TTT? Yeah, lots of people, right? So he then used that. So when the wind was like too strong for going windsurfing, he made it flash red and stuff like that. He's not a programmer, but he knew how to email something. So he could email a physical thing and control it. And he then set up like 100 of these different rules, and it did different things. This one people loved. It's a very simple idea, again, really simple. And I'm surprised we've not seen a Kickstarter with this yet. The idea of, if you can have a switch in your house that controls your lights, why can't you have a switch that controls your email? So, you come home and you go, I'm so done with email. and you turn it off at the wall. Because switches, this is the thing, right? Switches give you permission to interact with that thing, and they make it convenient. So imagine if, because at the moment, it's the other way around, right? It's as if, imagine if when you wanted to turn the lights off in your house, you had to get up a stepladder and change the bulbs, right? That's kind of how it's working now with all the email and all your devices. So I thought, well, why not just have a switch, and maybe you could turn Facebook off and Twitter and stuff like that. That kind of went nuts on the internet. So much so that Kickstarter got in touch and said, you should do a Kickstarter on this, of which I said, no way, because I've been there before and I nearly died. And then weird shit like this. It's a notification system before I show you, notifications, right? They're very kind of, by the nature of notifications, they're very in your face, because they go, you've got an email! That's what they do, right? So, because they want to notify you. But I thought, God, I'm English, and I'm a bit embarrassed about, that kind of stuff. So what if it was like more English and a bit more polite? Or it was like embarrassed to tell you that it had a notification. And then there's a technology called muscle wire, which is you can make levers out of it, but it's silent, so it's kind of beautiful. So I did this weird thing. So it magically moved when I got an email from John. That's all it does, right? Okay, yeah, I know it's ridiculous, but I think, let's put things into the world like this that are a bit nuts and a bit weird and nonsensical. Let's have more nonsensical things, because it might inspire other ideas. Airbnb. Now, if anyone was in Ivan's talk today, which was amazing, he talked about this project he did with Airbnb for the Airbnb house at Sundance. And weirdly, I did this year's installation at Airbnb. Now, I want to show you this because, again, put stuff out there, personal projects, and they can come back to you and generate money and generate income. So I did this thing called the happiness machine, which I'm going to show you now. I've shown it many times before. Apologies if you've seen it, but it kind of gives it context. So here you go. So I built this machine that printed happiness receipts from strangers who were talking about happiness. And you could print them out. You don't know who these people are. And you can take it with you and put it in your bag, your wallet, give it to someone, pin it up. Who cares? And again, this has been in lots of exhibitions and stuff. And I just made this for myself because I thought it was a nice thing to do. So you put that out there, and then in December of last year, I got an email from an agency who were working with Airbnb, and they said, we really love the happiness machine, and we're doing this thing at Airbnb at Sundance. We've taken over a whole house, and could we have the happiness machine to exhibit, essentially for free, right? So I thought, well, let's be a bit more clever here. So, and you can hustle for things like this. So I said, yeah, you can totally do that. Or why don't you commission me to make something based off that that's a bit more unique to you? So after, a bit of a conversation, the idea grew and grew and grew, and I ended up doing an installation for Airbnb, and it was like a four-week job, I think. And I think this is I guess, being a designer these days, it involves so much stuff. It can, and in my case, it can be electronics, it can be server back-end, it can be industrial design, as in inverted commas, as you'll see in a minute. But this is what I love about the internet. You don't know how to do something. You just Google it and learn and watch YouTube videos. And I think it's amazing. There's just amazing possibilities that are out there. So, I was making, so we were going to do, instead of one printer, we were having 12. So I had to make 12 of these things, which I'd never done before. And then how do you design a case for this kind of stuff? There's amazing software called Fusion 360 by Autodesk. And there's great YouTube videos on how to use it, and that's what I did. And this software is just incredible. And you can it's really beautiful and easy to use, and you can drop the components in, and so you can see if things measure up. And so I did all that, and then my MakerBot printed these things. Each one took a day. So to 12, I mean, just never stopped. It was like, it was just a nightmare noise for like almost a week, well, over a week. So I thought, I'm never doing that again. And then, assembling these things, it's just, a lot of fun. Again, components, I knew how to connect things to the internet, and then, I'd done the printer thing, and then I'd worked out how to do, the industrial design, just watching lots of YouTube videos, testing them. Even in projects like this, oftentimes they're let down by the power. It's about the details, and you're let down by the power cables, or those kind of things. So these are all textured power cables made from fabric, and I made my own power cables, which looked a lot nicer. SMS backend. So anyway, what was the idea? So people were encouraged at the house to send in stories about their local neighbors, or a character in the neighborhood, or a place that they love, or a coffee shop. And I did a whole back-end SMS thing. And because SMS is great, the barrier is like nil, pretty much. And so we did that, and then I painted that house. No. So lots of other people painted that house. And this is the Christian from Airbnb, and we have 5,500 prints in a week. And again, it's that mass of stuff I really, really love. And I've got to move on. But again, from a simple, the happiness machine ended up being this, which was I think, even better. And the stories that were shared. And Airbnb said, we're not going to have any admin. Just put them live. And I was like, really? I'm English. I'm from Manchester. And people would just swear constantly, right? And we had one. North Americans are just lovely. I don't know what it is. If that was in Manchester, it'd just be abuse constantly. But no, we had what it was, and you put your faith in the public, and it can actually return in many ways. It's great. So I was really surprised by that, and the quality of the stories was just incredible. And even Sundance tweeted it, put it on their Instagram feed. They really loved it as well. So final thing. This kind of stuff.
Monkey.
Oh, not that. This. I was contacted by Twitter, and they were doing a thing in Paris, and they wanted me to create something for them that allowed people to, in live system, allowed people to create something magical with art or whatever. So I said, right, well, I've seen the venue, and you've got loads of screens in the walls, and they look like windows. So what if we make like a kind of aquarium that's not an aquarium, because that would be boring. And so, as always, everything, I always say, everything starts out ugly, and you're trying to get to beautiful. So I would make stuff like this, just flocking motion, you get libraries that do this kind of stuff. And you're not really worried about the colors at this point. Usually I do a lot of black and white stuff. And they were really liking this, and I then changed the shape. If you take a sine wave and wrap it in 3D, you get these kind of shapes, kind of useful. But I realized they were like kitchen colanders or something, which wasn't good. And then I thought, they were swimming around in this box, and I was like, God, this is quite boring. And so I thought, well, let's go in the digital cupboard. Again, this thing of like mundane things I'd made, and trying to use that to make this more exciting. I thought, well, I've done this thing where I could work out how lines are wrapped around a sphere. Well, what if I map these things around a sphere? Maybe that would be more interesting. And so it was. And I took the same thing, and we were playing with the colorways that changed constantly. And so you wrap this around a sphere, and it's just more poetic to me. So wrapping it around there, I really like that, and they really like that. And this is what the eventual thing ended up as. But there's a twist as well. I'll you'll see in a minute. These creatures were made by people would tweet in, and there was then some code, an algorithm that looked at that person's profile and looked at how many Twitter followers they had and what was their Twitter unique number, and we used that to make a shape. It's kind of like their DNA. We did things like, if you were following more people than were following you, we said, you're a bit voyeuristic. And so we made you, I gave you like big eyes and a big antenna. So it really altered the shape. And if you had been on Twitter and quite prolific, you got a more colored body, you were way more interesting. So, you got these very simple shapes. Another tip I want to give you tonight is if you want to make something look like a creature, put some eyes on it. That's it. That's all you have to do. So, because I had these shapes, and they were like a bit mechanical, and I thought, all right, I'll bung some eyes on it. And they're like, oh, right, now they've got personality. That's cool. So as you've already seen, I have a 3D printer, and I've had one since 2010, one of the original MakerBots, and then basically got a better one eventually. This is a year of my first year of MakerBot. You make a lot of shit. It's just like, I don't need a giant rabbit. I don't need pliers that don't work. I don't need a mini Empire State Building, the rocket is kind of cool, though. But it's okay. When a new technology comes around, or it's new to me, it's part of the process. You push buttons to see what happens, and that's all right. And in that process, you make a lot of ugly things, but that's okay, because that's all technologies like that. So I thought, well, hang on a minute. Fast forward to this thing in Paris last year, this Twitter thing, and I thought, well, I've got these 3D meshes that are generated in real time, and each one was being exported as they were made as well. So I thought, well, we can 3D print them. So they were then 3D printed in full color. So you went from a digital thing to something you could hold in your hand, and they were, you just sort of, they were more empathetic and they were more cute. And this was, the client never even asked for this. I just did it, and they loved it. And so you're trying to make a moment that they would go, I remember that guy, did that 3D printed stuff, right? So, and some of these, this is, I don't know who this was, but this is all generated algorithmically and from their Twitter profile and their Twitter activity. And there's like, look at this person, they're really cool, right? They're exciting. This is the person you want to hang out with at the party. This is awesome. So I thought, I've been on Twitter since 2007. I'll put me in, right? In my system, I'll put me in. I'm all right. I'll surely say a few interesting things on Twitter. And I did me, and this was me. Right. I was like, there's obviously something wrong with the code, right? But I was like, what? Oh, God, shit, that's kind of, thanks. And this person's really cute. This is the one with one of the ones with the big eyes, so they're following more people than is following them, so they get huge eyes, So I like this idea of creating digital things that then become analog, and now this is this thing that I did this off my own back. It wasn't part of the brief. This is now in an exhibition in Paris at the moment. It's an exhibition about 3D printing, and they saw this, and so who knows where that would lead. I'm going to leave you with this thought, this is kind of central to all my work, even stuff without data. It's kind of a mantra. So think of data in its widest possible form. And it's about what is between the lines. It's playing a guitar is not about just reading the music. It's what you do with the spaces in between. And I think that's the same with this. Data by itself is not enough. I believe data needs poetry. Toronto, thank you very much.
And let your arms swing. Relax